guys, Josie here with Emotional Wisdom, and today's discussion is going to be about self-care. How my self-care looks like. So, my personal self-care is not of your traditional self-care methods or approaches. As many of you consider self-care or self-love actions possibly being going to the salon, getting a mani, a pedi, your haircut, a beautiful, amazing massage, right? Well, mine is not that traditional type of self-care approach nor modality. What I do whenever I want to care for Josie and feed Josie is one of I am with myself. I become present with myself. And to me, tuning in is the most rewarding method for me. For example, let's say that I am having a emotional distress happening in my life. I am discouraged. I'm going to actually put out there an emotion of discouragement and disappointment, right? I feel like for me, there has been many layers I've been tackling and I've been working on to really get to the root of my disappointments. So whenever the air of disappointment comes up, you know, it's an opportunity to see what aspect of me I yet have not paid attention to, listened to, and nurtured thereafter. So what I do when I'm in that emotion of distress, of discouragement, disappointment, I go to a safe space, anywhere I have deemed for it to be safe and secure. Typically that ends up being in my room. I create the ambiance of peace, oasis, of relaxation, to get me into the zone, okay? I then tune in with myself. I basically dialogue. Yes, I speak to that emotion, to that aspect of me that represents, that is Josie, that aspect that is the discouragement inside of me, that child within me that genuinely has a valid reason that I yet may not be fully aware of. So what I do is I invite that aspect of me. I like to associate them as little children, many children within me. So I invite that aspect / child that genuinely is discouraged, and I invite it to surface so I can dialogue with it without judgment, without saying, ugh, why am I feeling like this, without the sensation of annoyance, without the sensation or the intention, I should say, of trying to get rid of it. More so of an inviting intention, right? One of I accept you fully. And acceptance means I invite you in my energy field. I invite you to surface. I invite you to talk. So I, the conscious Josie, right? The aware one that's calling forth that aspect of me that's discouraged, but yet doesn't really fully know why, where, how did it transpire. I basically sit back and with zero judgment, to the best of my ability, obviously, I just sit and I become present with it. It's almost as if just providing presence is what it really needs. Kind of like a child. When a child acts out, when your child screams and starts crying, when it doesn't have your attention, right? First starts off with, you know, calling your name, doesn't feel like it's being paid attention to, so it starts screaming and acting up, and then it starts crying, right? Basically the problem's getting bigger. But the intention of the child is to get your attention, so its needs can be met, right? So what we're doing whenever this emotion is arising is we want to call it forth so we could understand what it needs. let me give you an example. Whenever you're feeling some type of way, it's because most of the time you're in need of something. You're in need of something, right? So the only way you can give yourself what you need is to be made aware of, okay, what am I in need of, right? So going back to the emotion and me, I call it forth so I can learn from it. What does it need from me, right? I need to understand it so I can genuinely give it what it needs. So as I do that, I then immediately feel a relief. Let me give you an example of what the emotional body does. Whenever we're ignoring something that we need to align and correct, if you will, and heal, the emotion starts obviously getting bigger. And I'm going to give you an example of pulsing. So whenever there's a problem, right, and let's say it gets to the point where it's unbearable now, where you basically need to address it or you can't avoid it any longer, it's almost like now the pulsing is like this. It's literally to the point where you can't ignore it. But the moment the conscious merges to the aspect of you that's subconscious or even unconscious, because obviously you don't know why you're really being drawn to this emotion or why this emotion is even surfacing. So obviously when the conscious becomes conscious of the unconscious or the subconscious, it's like it no longer needs to get your attention, right? It already has it. So it's almost as if it's the subconscious is made aware that it has your attention already. So from doing this, and now the conscious is paying attention to the problem or to more so the pain, then it starts slowing down because obviously it now has your attention. Again, like the child screaming out for your attention. The child, when it gets your attention, it stops crying or it stops screaming because it has your attention. So going back to the pulsing, it's pulsing like this, okay? Then all of a sudden the conscious becomes conscious of the pain, and now the pain becomes conscious that it has your awareness, and it slows down, okay? So basically you'll start feeling, just kind of want to give you a visual of how it's going to feel in your somatic body, in your emotional body, okay? Is that it's now aware that it has your attention. So it now is in unison with you, if you will. So instantaneously creating that relief, okay? And then from there, what I do is I notice that, right? I notice that it calms down. I notice that when I become present with it, it knows I'm with it. And it instantaneously gets satisfaction, right? It feels good. Because that's how I feel, right? No longer feels that nagging and sensation. Then from there, obviously, I ask it questions and I take it back and I take it back. And that's another video. But going back to how my self-care looks like is of that, is of this approach. And I feel like many of you need to hear this because a lot of you have been repeating the same self-care, self-love, it's time for me method, which is, like I said, going out to the salon, getting your mani-pedi massages, or even going out to eat and going to the movies and treating yourself. But then that really is not resolving the issue. You kind of just numb it or occupy it, or it's only essentially a distraction, and then it comes right back. So if you really, really want to heal, integrate, okay? I like calling it as integration, you know, instead of rejecting that part of you that we are unconscious of, that we want no part of, and that's why it's creating pain inside of us. Instead of creating that sensation of rejection, integrate it, right? So you can become more whole. So that is my method, and hopefully those of you who are found in a situation that kind of repeats the same traditional approach, implement this one if you want long-lasting, sustainable results, okay? With all the love and acceptance Josie.